But what we have, in essence, I'm going to give you the cliff notes, is a sect of people who deem the cyber world paramount in their existence and their understanding of reality, and their need for what we talked about, human acceptance, to their real life. So we have two different paradigms. We have either a people that lived before all this internet stuff, so of course their main focus is real life, tangible things, not their online avatar. They may dibble and dabble in social media, but they look at social media as an add-on to life. Or either people like us too that grew up kind of in the social media era, but were before it too. Now, some of these kids were born in a social media era. And then there's people that choose to be into, their avatar more than real life. So the dynamic they're describing is we have a sect of people that put more precedence into their avatar. And maybe that's another aspect of mental health that's overlooked, is because people aren't worrying about their self and how their personal self is doing. They're not in tune with their personal self and the people around them. They're more worried about their representative or their avatar that's being presented to the world. And especially now when it's incentivized, because you can make money, you can make a career, you can be a brand, you can, pretty much sell yourself or whatever you're trying to put out to the world through this avatar. So where's the line? We've talked about the technocracy, but this even brought a whole different level, where people are looking for their self defining things that we used to go through society for online. And what happens is, the problem is online, we have a environment that's brewing where cancel culture has made it to where whatever a person presents themselves as, you pretty much have to accept that fact. And there can't be any pushback to identity online, because then you'll be looked at as a bully or, insensitive and all these things. And in real life, that's just not the reality oftentimes. You have to actually go through an ebb and a flow of acceptance and people pushing back on who you're putting yourself out to be, if it's not true to what they see, or true to how your energy you're bringing. I'll just say that, so it's building a sect of people who have no checks and balances. It's just a online free for all, so it's an interesting thing. Like, is there two different worlds we're living in? An online world, a digital avatar world, and then a real world. And are we all trying to balance these things out, when we reach for our phone, So, yeah, it was interesting to hear him talk about it, because it makes you just question how you handle these things and how you let them affect your life or guide your life. You become a slave. Who's your daddy, people? Who's your daddy? Are you in control? Or are these devices and all these amenities that we've become accustomed to really pulling and guiding our choices and our decisions because we need them? They become our daddy, I don't know. I tend to believe that that's true, because I've often said our need for comfort has really hampered us as a people, because I find myself going back to old school ways because it's a lost art. The things people get paid to do, we have machines that do now, and we don't want to do anymore. Well, I want to still remember some of these things, because if not, then this shit is like, what do we have? You know what I mean? As people, how do you define wealth, or how do you define value? Now value is almost all defined online, digitally.
Yeah, there has to be a healthy balance, or you lose humanity. You lose your humanity, rather. There's always going to be new innovations. You know where I stand on technology. Sometimes I know it. For me, it goes a little too far. But you know what I always think of? I always wonder, like, how we talk about like social media and like or on the internet. I wonder if like when people first started, like, and it would be hard to know when they did because they've been around for years, but like when books first came out, if they were like, yeah, you keep fucking reading those books and you won't study your symbolism anymore. You know what I mean? And that's how that got lost, you know? And they were like, oh, it's harmless. You know, it's just a book.
I think me and you postulated that, and I'm sure.
You know?
I agree.
And then it over time, it's just gone from one source of this, right?
Because it encapsulates something that has no bounds.
Yeah.
So then it limits as soon as you do it, it limits whatever you're trying to.
And there's a I don't know if it's a play or I forget what it is by Plato. Whatever the fuck he writes. Excuse my language. Whatever he writes. I read it though, and it was pretty interesting where I think Socrates might have been speaking to some of the students, and I forget exactly the background on this, but you'll get what I'm saying. You'll catch my drift. They're like, he's basically shitting on books, you know? And they're like, well, what do you mean? Like, books are amazing. Look at all this information and knowledge. It's a wealth of knowledge and all these books. He goes, yeah, but it can only be understood one way. You're only going to interpret it one way. And that may not be how that person meant it, or it may not be true, or it may not be so many things. So for him, he was like, fuck these things. And I was like, wow. And that was a really, I would have never thought that Socrates had that view. And I believe that that's the story. If I'm getting it wrong, please comment and leave a comment below. Or if you know the name of that, whatever I'm talking about, please let me know in the comments below.
It's a beautiful point you bring up because we're in the information age now.
Yeah.
So if that time it was known that these things could be hazardous, now look at us.
Yeah.
People have to navigate a forest of information.
Yeah.
And know which to give their attention to.
Thank God we got fact checkers on Facebook. And then we
let us not get started.
Kush and Chemtrails, the world's most dangerous podcast.